Okay, so to recap, because I see over here that I hadn't activated the stream on one of my some of my platforms here. Okay, so to recap what we're talking about so far is that being available is not a leadership strategy. It just isn't. And oftentimes we think that as leaders, if we're always available, we're doing the very best thing. But what we've discussed already so far, and what bears repeating, is that being available is actually a trap because we think that we're doing a service for others. In reality, we're not, because by showing up for them, we're just sort of allowing them to dictate our schedules. That's not the intent. The intent is for us to lead. To lead means I have to have direction. I have to have purpose. I have to have a plan. Where am I going with all of this? Yes, I want to support you. Yes, I want to make sure you can get your very best work done as well. But that's not my primary job. My primary job is to provide guidance, leadership, and direction. And I cannot do that if I'm constantly putting out fires and if I'm acquiescing to other people's agendas. So let's get out of the availability trap and let's focus instead on what great leaders can do to preserve their energy, to show up in the right way, and make sure that they're not being overly available at the cost of their most important work. So let's take a step back here for a second. Again, if you're here on whatever platform, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, thank you for being here. Thank you for engaging with me, and thank you for being willing to share your thoughts and comments. I'm saying that in advance. I'd love to see what it is that you have to say, your questions, your comments, your concerns, and maybe your stories. Maybe you have something specific that you want to share that relates to your own experiences in this area. And that, frankly, would be fantastic. So I would absolutely love to see you there. Now, let's talk about the trap, the always on trap that we have already alluded to. So we live in a culture that worships speed and access. And as I mentioned earlier, as a head of school, when I first got started, I really wanted to be accessible and I wanted to be responsive quickly. And that got me into a lot of trouble because on the one hand, yes, people liked and appreciated the responsiveness. But let's provide a scenario. You're at a team meeting, or maybe if you're an educator, you're visiting a classroom. And instead of being present and in the conversation, you've got your phone out. You've got something else going on. And so you're trying to be responsive to people outside of the room, let's say, without being focused on people inside the room. Or you have an important proposal or something to deliver that's going to advance your organization, maybe gain you access to funding, critical things. And instead of doing that, you're getting busy because other people want your time and they're not thinking about your time. They're thinking about their needs. That's just human nature. People think about their needs. They don't think about everybody else. Okay. So yes, you're going to get praised for replying quickly and you feel useful to jump in. But whenever you are making yourself available, realize that it comes at a cost. Realize that what happens then is that you become unavailable, right? When you're available to others, you become unavailable to your highest value work. Okay. I'll give you an example. I've got a senior leader that I work with. We'll call him Adam. One of his major struggles is that his door, his inbox, and his calendar were constantly open, which means he had no control. So while people loved him, he wasn't doing the work that he as a leader needed to do. So strategy stalled. The vision became reactive. His team stopped owning decisions because everything that Adam was a yes guy. He was just constantly, rubber stamping things. That's not leadership. That maybe on some level you might call that servant leadership, but really that's just like logistic support. That's just like helping people get stuff done. But you're not a stronger leader as a result of that. If anything, you're less effective, you're more tired, you're more disjointed, you're not able to really hone in. And that creates all sorts of long-term issues, resentment, disengagement, silent burnout, you name it. So I want to introduce as a solution, we've been talking a lot about the problems. I want to introduce a solution that I genuinely feel that if we can hone in on this is going to really, really help. So in order to do that, let's talk about the energy budget concept, right? So we've talked about managing our time, but even if you're great at that, which is not necessarily a given, we have to focus on something else as well, which is budgeting our and managing and budgeting our energy. All right, so let me give you a concept. So with time is linear, right? So you get 24 hours in a day, and that just progresses along a timeline, and then it renews the following day. Whereas, so time never stops, which is actually not such a good thing, right? We always wish we could freeze time, get more of it. But we know how time works. Energy is variable. That means sometimes I have more energy, sometimes I have less energy. And once my energy is gone, it's hard to pick it up again. It's not impossible. You could do some exercise, you could take a walk. There are things you could do, but it is a lot harder to operate when you're feeling drained. Okay. So think of it as a budget. Every time you respond to a Slack message, it costs you $1. Every random meeting that you don't need to be at, that you accept anyway, $3. Every other interruption, $2, $4, maybe $10, right? If every thing that you do that gets in the way of your primary work is viewed financially, and you start to stack all of those costs based on the interruption, the number of interruptions and disruptions and meetings and things, the time sucks in your day that you really don't need to be engaging in, then it starts to add up fast. And you realize, hey, what am I doing? Right? Instead, what if I credited you and if I gave you money every time you did something that fed your energy, or at least leveraged your energy in a way where you used it in the best way possible? If you took that hour that we talked about before and you just gave it to yourself and you said, I'm going to block out everything, strategy time, give myself $20, right? I'm going to use my time effectively so that I'm focusing on the right things at the right time. Do not disturb, all the protections necessary, not all day, but it's, when you need it. Then I start stacking wins. So I go from stacking losses, or people are draining my time, stealing away my energy, stealing away my focus, to me, by protecting my time and my energy, raising that and being strategic and being more focused. Because when we value our time, here's a really interesting thing. Time is a commodity, maybe linear, but it's still a commodity, right? So when we value our time, what starts to happen is that we use it better. So it's not just a quantitative measure, 30 minutes, 60 minutes. It's the quality of those 30 or 60 minutes, right? When I am very focused, we all know this, let's say, for example, with deadlines. When I have a deadline that's approaching, so I'm more targeted and focused because I got to get it done, right? All the other things that were getting in the way can't bother me now. I'm like a horse with blinders. I need to finish. So you got to manage your calendar. You have to manage your focus, and you have to manage your, let's call it prioritization. When you start to do that, all of a sudden, it's a totally different world in which we're living. It's a really different experience. And oftentimes we don't think we're allowed to. That's one of the things I really want to impress here, is that we don't give ourselves permission to lead with intentionality, to protect our time. But oftentimes when we do it, think about it like this, we're actually modeling it for other people. So others as well, who maybe tend to be a little bit more disjointed, not so focused, not so intentional with their time, now all of a sudden, because of the way we lead, because of the way that we protect our own time, guess what? Now they start to protect their time as well. Now they start to think, should I really be bothering so-and-so right now, or should I let them do their work? Maybe I just give them information and I allow them to, take it in and own it at their convenience. So let's do an activity that I think will advance our conversation here. right? So let's take a moment. I want you to reflect. I want you to grab something, ideally a notebook, preferably more so than your phone, right? And then I want you to actually write this down. Let's do some reflection prompts. These reflection prompts, I think, will give us the basis to think intentionally again about what's most important. Number one, what's one part of your day where you're most likely giving away your energy without even realizing it? So examples might be back-to-back messages, meetings, back-to-back meetings, checking your messages during deep work when you're supposed to be doing the deep work, solving other people's problems. When are you giving away your energy that you can then not have available for yourself to do your work? Think about that for a minute. It could also be a time of day. I'm a big believer in getting your most important things done first thing in the morning. So I would love to be unavailable first thing in the morning wherever I can. Get into the office early where possible, do things before the interruptions start. That would be a great time. Okay. Reflection prompt number 2, and please do respond. I'd love to see it. Type in your answers, whatever that is. If you could protect just 1 hour a day for focused strategic work, when would this hour be? As I shared with you before, my ideal time is first thing in the morning. But maybe for you, it's right after lunch. Maybe for you, it's late in the afternoon, after or even into the evening, when you feel like you've accomplished all the other stuff. Now I could really focus in on my things. So please drop in your answers, your comments, your questions. I'd love to see it. I'd love to be able to respond to it. Now let me end this live with a story. I think this story really is going to capture the essence of what we've been discussing. There's a client that I've worked with. We'll call her Rena. She was a VP at a fast-growing company, brilliant, committed, deeply trusted by her team, a rock-solid reputation. Everyone knew that if you needed something, Rena's your person. She'll take care of it for you. The problem she had is that she had no space to think. Her day was a blur of meetings, Slack messages, drop-ins, last-minute escalations, you name it. She was there for everybody, but as you could already pick up, she wasn't there for herself. So we experimented. We tried something. I said, Rena, you know what? Let's take the first 2 hours every day for you to focus on your most important things. Block out your time. Make your calendar unavailable. Close out the notifications. Close the door. Hang up a sign. Whatever you need to do. Block out those 2 hours. No meetings, no pings. Just focused, high leverage work. And guess what started to happen? So at the beginning, as you can imagine, her team was probably thrown off a little bit, and they weren't sure what to do with it. Who is this person already? I expect her to be at my beck and call. But over time, something started to happen. They started to own their own work more. Rena didn't have to deal with as much of their work as she had in the past. She felt sharper and calmer and more strategic. She became more intentional. And even though she was technically less available, her availability was still there. It was just repurposed. It was redirected. It was more strategic. So let's conclude. Let's wrap this thing up with some practical takeaways. The biggest takeaway I want you to have from this conversation is that you don't always need to be available in order to be effective. In fact, it's the leaders who protect their energy. They're the ones who lead with clarity, with calm, and with consistency. So here's your challenge, and I really hope that you'll let me know how it goes. I challenge you to set a focus boundary. Remove the notifications and or block out an hour each day for strategy, or simply pausing before saying yes, and maybe just letting that person know that you have a lot on your plate right now. You'd love to be able to help. However, you've got so many other things as well, and you just discuss it with them and you work it out. So remember, your job is not your job is not just to fulfill tasks. Your job is to lead. You lead through presence, and you lead by example. And so you say yes to what matters, say no to the noise, and protect the leader that you are and that you still aspire to become. Thank you again for being here with me today. I'm so glad that you made the time. I hope you found this to be valuable. And I'm certainly looking forward to hearing more from you. So please comment, share. Let's keep this conversation going. Have a great day, everybody.